what will you say about the timing? I saw the CS allocating a big chunk, 146 billion Kenya shillings to the Big Four agenda. Is there room in the next few months to meet the Big Four agenda that they had promised?
Yeah, of course. The fact that the CS has allocated the 146 billion to the Big Four agenda does not really mean that whatever has not been finished must be finished in the next 2 or 3 months. What we are anticipating is that the Big Four agenda, being a national outfit, is something that also must also be picked by the new administration. So the expectation in there is that because this is a budget for the next 1 year, it is June to June. So we expect that some of the pending projects could be accomplished within the next 1 year. So it is still fine because some of the projects have not been accomplished. And what we are saying here, and this is what the Wanjiku would want to hear, so long as that money is used responsibly. And of course, some of the things that have dotted, and even as you talk about legacy, some of the things that have dotted the Jubilee administration. And this is where we want to call out there our leaders to be very transparent and honest, because you would allocate that 146 billion just to be able to, to accomplish some of the Jubilee Big Four agenda projects. But if that money is not used responsibly, those projects will never come to an end. Yeah.
Well, the CS also mentioned that about 260 billion Kenya shillings shall be borrowed externally to finance the deficit of the budget. What are your thoughts, given the current debt existing at the moment?
What I would say is that, yes, it is the 260 billion debt that has been proposed. Year after year, the government has always come up with a budget statement that is way above our, projected income. And of course, we all know how the government raises its own revenue to be able to, to meet the recurrent budget and any other budget that it has, the CAPEX project that it has. What I would say that the proposed amount of money that needs to be, and I want to be as simple as possible, the proposed amount of money that the government has proposed to be able to borrow from the external market, that is from the foreign entities, much it is 260-something, it is slightly lower than what was there last year. So that would still be a plus, but that does not mean that we still need to continue borrowing. This is what I would say. Like, for instance, and this is what we have always said, that we hope the government is borrowing to be able to put that money that it has borrowed into economic viable ventures that would, yield results. For instance, if that money is the same money that has been borrowed, for instance, that's money, for example, we are saying has been borrowed to, to fund education sector, for example. So if that money has been borrowed to fund education, can we see that money going into the education to the last cent? Yes. So if not dotted with issues of corruption and public finance mismanagement, then I think we should be fine, because let us borrow amounts and in bits that we are very sure that we can pay. But remember, as we borrow, we already have maturing loans, some of the loans that we need to, to pay back. So are we borrowing again, yet we have mature loans that have matured and we have not been able to pay them back? Yeah.
And as you mentioned, Wanjiku, in the streets, somebody wants to know, is the fuel price coming down? Something that the CS seemingly did not address. And as well as the high cost of living in terms of foodstuffs. What would you say about that?
Yeah, so, those are very thorny issues, and they would rather not talk about them because we all know that it's about election, and some of those things are things that somebody can really use to pin you down. What we have said, last year's budget, the government had talked about revision, or rather coming up with national tax policy amendments that would really favor the common Kenyan. But you know what? This is what we have seen year after year. The government has always looked at the next possible taxable area, if I allow me to use that, so that they would raise, more revenue. For instance, we had, and every moment you raise taxation on a product, or rather on a process, say manufacturing, it is the end product that you are increasing its price. So what has been proposed, and this is what was expected. It was expected that the government would address the whole issue of VAT on LPGs, fuel, and such related items. When that is done, you can be sure that processes like manufacturing that uses this as primary sources of production will definitely reduce the cost of the end product, which is what Wanjiku is interested in. Today, Tess, we are talking about unga. You never know. You go to the market, the supermarket out there, you find unga is 130, 140, 150. Sometimes you are not even very sure. Yeah, and such oil, cooking oil, and those are the key things why that affect the life of the common Kenyan. So if the government does not come to address the whole issue of taxation, especially on the fuel and on the petroleum and such products, then it will be very difficult, even for the manufacturers, to lower the prices. So the ball still is at the court of the government, just to be able to, and I know, this is a budget statement, and it is been now presented before the parliament. We expect maybe in the next 2 or so months that it is signed into, an act of parliament or into a law, so that it starts operation on the 1st of July, the year 2022. Then, of course, that is a new financial year. So unless the government revises, or rather checks in there and ensures that the tax regime, the tax policies that are administering on the common commodities, including on exportation and importation, then it will be very difficult for the common goods to have their prices being lowered, just like that by the retailers, or rather the supermarket vendors.
Well, this is a very ambitious budget, given it is more than what was there last year. And the CS has projected 50.4 billion Kenya shillings to be generated through taxation. What do you make of these projections in terms of how do we raise the revenue? Is it manageable?
Of course, we have seen Kenya Revenue Authority year after year. I think, save for the year of COVID, we had, we had KRA actually surpassing the target that it was given through, of course, generation of revenue through the various taxes. We have a lot of, channels where the government has been able to. And so my take then is that it is possible for Kenya Revenue Authority, for the government to be able to raise that kind of, and it's very ambitious. So I think the ball is in the court of KRA and the officers, just to be able to ensure that target is achieved.
Maybe because of time, let's get your final remarks. What do you take? What's your last take on the 2022-2023 budget?
Yeah, so my take would then be, and again, one of the things that I did not mention is that, having mentioned that the Jubilee administration are the ones that ushered in the devolution, then it will be very important for us to dwell in there, because this is where, as a nation, we are going into the second phase of devolution administration, where we are having county governments. So then what I can confirm is that devolution has worked, and we just need. I've seen an allocation of about 370 billion there for the county governments. Maybe what we can say, because we have also seen cases where issues like corruption, mismanagement of public funds, being also reported at the county level. So this is where we call it out there and ensure that let our Kenya government ensure that the money that has been allocated, where it is raised locally through whatever instrument, through whatever means, whether it is borrowed from the foreign markets, let that money be put into responsible places to be able to give, rather for service delivery to the common Kenya. What we are shunning is the runaway corruption. And if possible, if the government can also cut, because you cannot maintain the status quo of having ministers, having chase cars, and every other person, governors having chase cars, and yet your people don't have food on the table. If the government can ensure that we look afresh at the public the burden of the public debt, including the wages, the salaries, the allowances, the fuel costs, and even at a time, there's a time when we had our current president, when he was the Minister of Finance, he did away with the fuel guzzlers. We don't know what happened when he came over into government, when he took over as the president, because you could have probably said that this is what the president has done, in as much as, managing public debt is concerned. So this is where we are saying let both county and national governments, because we don't want cases where we have, suppliers, contractors, both at the county and national level, crying out loud that they have rendered services and those services cannot be paid, and yet that money was allocated. So my take would be, let us shun corruption, let us ensure that the public funds are used responsibly. In the next 1 year, we will see the benefits of the money that has been allocated just to be able to ensure that our government runs smoothly.
Well said, Pius Nunda.
Thank you
so much for making time for us.
Yeah.
That was Pius Nunda, who is the Director of Finance and Administration, Howard and Associates Strategic Consulting Limited.